the winner of the 2023 Forbes Africa Person of the Year. So it's none other than Professor Benedict Oramah, the President of the Afrexim Bank.
Named Forbes Africa Magazine 2023 Person of the Year in recognition of his stellar accomplishments of leading Africans who have contributed to the development of the continent. Professor Benedict Oramah, President of the African Export-Import Bank, is widely regarded as a true Pan-Africanist.
I dedicate this honor to all of you, to the bank, and to the people of Africa. Thank you once again.
With a career spanning 3 decades at Afrexim Bank, Professor Oramah assumed the position of President and Chairman of the Board of Directors of Afrexim Bank in 2015. Since then, he has received numerous awards and recognitions. In 2019, one of Nigeria's foremost private universities, Adeleke University, decorated Dr. Oramah as a professor of international trade and finance. He was also honored in 2022 with the Commander of the Order of the Niger by Nigeria's ex-president, Muhammadu Buhari.
The next is Professor Benedict Oramah.
Oramah has been listed as one of the most influential Africans for his decisive role in driving economic integration in Africa. Under his visionary leadership, Afrexim Bank in 2018 organized the first intra-African trade fair in Cairo, Egypt, in collaboration with the African Union Commission and the government of Egypt, following the successful signing of the African Continental Free Trade Area Agreement, which seeks to enhance trade and economic growth across Africa. Amongst many of his initiatives, Afrexim Bank launched the Pan-African Payment and Settlement System, a historic project for cross-border payments in local African currencies. Oramah is a resilient risk-taker and has articulated across several platforms what a new united Africa should be. He became an advocate for efficient healthcare facilities in Africa after a near-death experience in 2013 and is now leading the development of a 500-bed medical facility in the Federal Capital Territory, Abuja. I met up with the celebrated banker during his recent visit to Nigeria to sign a $1 billion facility to finance healthcare investment in Nigeria. Professor Benedict Oramah, President, Afrexim Bank. Thank you so much for joining me on the program.
Thank you very much.
All right. Let us start with why you're here in Nigeria. I know that you're based out of Cairo, Egypt. You met with President Bola Ahmed Tinubu, and we know that Afrexim Bank has signed a $1 billion presidential initiative to facilitate the health sector. Tell us what the targeted goals are beyond what the Africa Medical Center for Excellence in Abuja, which is set for commissioning, I believe, in the first quarter of 2025. And why healthcare? Why are you so interested in healthcare?
Thank you very much. Now, I always believe that healthcare is human right. Every person on this earth should have access to good health care, because that is what makes you to live a wholesome life. It is not what we should just reserve for the very rich and mighty. I always believe this. In 2013, I fell seriously ill and I nearly died. My condition was so serious that I had to be evacuated out of Cairo.
Wow.
But to evacuate me out of Cairo, given the complexity of the condition, we had to find out, my bank had to find who in the world could handle this kind of situation. They wanted to make sure that I received the best care possible to give me the chance of survival. We did checks, and 3 of the references all ended up naming one professor, Professor Ghulam Mufti of King's College Hospital, London. We then made contact with him, our office made contact with him, and he was kind enough to say he could receive me. But I had to come very quickly. But I did arrive there, and it became really, really serious. That actually, as a Catholic, I was given the last sacrament that I want to give somebody who was about to die.
Wow.
But out of that came something good. As I was beginning to recover, I would always ask God, okay, given the many near deaths that I went through as I was receiving treatment, and I still was alive and was now looking like I was going to come out of it, I always told God, I know you will not come down to tell me why you kept me alive.
Yes.
But I want you to find a way to point me in that direction of why you decided to give me another chance. I told myself, having gone through this, having been kept alive because of the kind of facilities and the expertise that I met at King's College Hospital in London at that time, that I should try, do my best to make sure that I also contributed in putting such a facility in Africa.
Absolutely.
So that those who, because people will always get sick, those who find themselves in similar conditions will not have to be like me.
Yes.
I was able to get the care I got,
Yes,
because I was supported by the bank. It was very expensive treatment I received, so the bank was able to take care of it. I was able to get all the support to get evacuated. And it was because of a bank that we had to ask, where is the best place
yes.
to go look, to find somebody to look after me.
Do you mind sharing that medical condition with us?
Well, it was a blood condition.
It was a blood condition.
Yes.
Professor Oramah, healthcare, no doubt, is important in Africa, and we applaud your move. And I know that, this $1 billion facility that was announced on Wednesday with President Bola Ahmed Tinubu is different from what you have done in the past for healthcare, and which I mentioned earlier, the Africa Medical Center for Excellence in Abuja. What is the targeted goal for this $1 billion facility?
The presidential initiative for unlocking the health value chain is what we are targeting with the $1 billion. And I think I'm talking as a Nigerian, we are really fortunate that we have Professor Pate as the coordinating Minister of Health and Social Welfare. His vision for the industry in Nigeria aligns fully with ours. He believes that the job of the state is to create a facilitative environment, and that the investments we need to change the healthcare sector will come mostly from the private sector. So the framework he has in mind is a public-private partnership where the public will do what they know how to do best, and the private sector will do what they know how to do best. To get this arrangement delivered will require financing. Capital is always an important thing. And the value chains we wanted to unlock all align with what we are doing. As you mentioned, the African Medical Center of Excellence in Abuja is one of the initiatives we introduced or we are developing in Nigeria as a pilot project to deal with complex non-communicable diseases. A very complex kind of disease, the kind of thing I think I went through London. But notwithstanding the kind of the ecosystem we are building there in Abuja, the kind of diagnostic facilities we are putting together, the kind of equipment, including building a high-capacity cyclotron plant to produce radioactive isotopes for diagnosis and treatment of certain kinds of cancers and other things. There are other things we need to do. We will be doing genomics at the African Medical Center of Excellence Abuja. We expect to have the largest biolab for West Africa in that center. So this $1 billion will go to support that. It will bring funding in terms of equity, in terms of debt, to enable us work with the government to create that infrastructure. And because of the kind of things we are doing at the African Medical Center of Excellence, the kind of capacities we are creating, this initiative will fully support and align with what the work we are doing. And another thing that we've enabled them to do, as you are aware, the African Medical Center of Excellence is a project we are doing together with King's College Hospital in London. And of course, and the Christie's Oncology Center, Manchester, and University of Wisconsin Teaching Hospital. But the lead partner is King's College Hospital. But in the course of last year, we also entered an arrangement with King's College, the university itself, to build the campus of King's College of Medicine at the same facility, so that students, largely people from Africa, who would desire to get the kind of first-class medical, nursing, and other expertise and training that King's College London offers will be trained in that facility. Right. So that aligns with some of the things that the minister and the government is doing, because they want to produce quality health professionals in Nigeria. So that's why we signed on the $1 billion, and we believe that it's just the beginning. The African Medical Center of Excellence we are building with all the other facilities we are developing in Abuja, the project cost, total project cost overall at full completion is $700 million. And that would deliver a 500-bed hospital. That would deliver a state-of-the-art diagnostic center. That would deliver a long-stay facility so that people who come from outside Nigeria to get treated will have a place to stay. Right. That will also deliver a doctors' clinics around the hospital, so that those who want to practice but want to use the facilities, including state-of-the-art theaters for surgery and others, so that they will have a place to stay and offer those services. Absolutely. So you can see that $1 billion is just
scratching the surface.
Because if one project is $700 million, what you can imagine when we collaborate to do other things. And that is why we are very pleased that the government is taking this approach.
Absolutely. It's amazing. It is definitely the type of facility that would attract foreign investment. Now, with Nigeria's dwindling economy and President Bola Ahmed Tinubu's reforms, which some have been praised by foreign bodies like the IMF and so, I understand that Afrexim Bank had implemented this $3 billion loan facility, which NNPC has received about 2.25 billion out of that 3 billion loan facility, which is to support foreign exchange and also aimed at helping the acute FX shortage that has hampered our economy. Now, how really can Nigeria benefit from this loan facility? There's also been that controversy about the repayment of that loan. And there's this allegation about this $7 billion differential when that loan is repaid. Can you tell Nigerians how that loan would help Nigeria at this critical time?
All right. Yes, we put a facility for the government of Nigeria through Nigerian National Petroleum Company Limited in an amount of at $3.35 billion. We've disbursed $2.25 billion. The balance will be disbursed shortly in accordance with the plan we agreed with NMPC and the government. The loan goes to bridge the foreign exchange gap that currently exists, creates the opportunity to enable the country and the central bank to manage the backlog that had occurred and are putting pressure on our currencies. There's so much money that are owed that we are being papered over. And that's contributing to the kind of problems we are seeing in the foreign exchange market. So you have people who have entered swaps with the central banks, but they are not getting reimbursed as they should. And of course, forwards that some commercial banks have entered into, which they used to cover their trade facilities, the trade, the import transactions they did, which are also not being honored as they should. So this is helping to clear off all those. Because when you then clear them, you restore confidence in the system, and that begins to stabilize the economy. Trade begins to happen again more smoothly. So we expect that this would play a very, very significant role as it begins to be used to do what it's supposed to be used for. And the idea of that I've had some people criticize, and a number of criticisms, before I go to the one of the criticism, which is that we are going to repay a $3 billion loan with $12 billion, kind of ridiculous criticism. Let me also talk about...
ridiculous, you said?
Is.
Okay. Before you answer that, go ahead.
Because I've never seen where somebody repays a loan, borrow $1, you repay with $12. I would like to be that kind of banker.
So what are the repayment terms? What are the repayment terms of this loan? Just, for transparency.
The repayment terms are, first, the loans are sec. It's a prepayment loan. That's one. And we've done this kind of things before. It's not the first time. We've done it not only with Nigeria, with Angola, with Congo, with South Sudan, so many countries where we've done this kind of facility. So it's a prepayment facility whereby future deliveries of cargo are paid for today. So the buyer, which is the prepayment party, receives given quantity of cargo. There are two ways you protect yourself from the price movements, because it's not a loan of less than 1 year, it goes to 5 years. There are a number of ways you protect yourself, because for certain oil prices will fluctuate. Either you take a hedge to protect yourself. Now, some people, including the NMPC, may not want to take a hedge because people may not understand the hedge. When they then do the hedge, they will have to explain why the hedge was taken, especially if all through the process the hedge didn't have to be used. People would then say they've thrown their money away. And so they have tried to avoid the complexity, although that would be what a private person would do normally. So if you don't want to take a hedge, you then pledge a certain percentage of your cargoes to protect the entity that's financing you from price fluctuations. And that was the case in this one. So we have excess cargoes that were pledged. Now, you have what's called a price balancing mechanism in the loan. What the price balancing mechanism does is that if you gave me 2 cargoes as cover, well, maybe at the price deck we used for the deal, maybe it's 1 cargo that would be enough to pay it, but you've pledged 2 cargoes. So the price balancing mechanism works this way. When the cargo is sold and monies come, you then take the amount to repay the installment, and you repay your installment. You release 90% of the second cargo, so to say, the example I'm giving you, back to, say, in this case, NNPC. You use 10% as a mandatory prepayment of the facility. So it means then that instead of, say, 5 years, the loan will become shorter. So the whole second cargo goes back entirely to call it the borrower to make it simple. But what happens if you apply to cargo and oil price had crashed in the meantime? Then, of course, the excess cargo you've pledged will protect everybody, because it means that the lender has enough funding to cover itself. So that is the way it's supposed to work. And I've had the issue of, by pledging cargo, you are mortgaging your future.
Yes.
And so I asked the person who is saying this to pause for a moment and look at his own personal balance sheet. Your personal balance sheet as a person, you have your cash, maybe cash in your pocket, cash in your bank, maybe your building, if it's where the people own minerals under the ground. The Nigerian, if you look at the Nigerian balance sheet, so to say, Nigeria will have money, cash, wherever it is, government has. It has other assets. It has also the mineral deposits under the ground. Now, all these are assets. You can decide yourself that the risk of holding my assets under the ground is very high. And in this case, it's actually quite high. I can decide I will move the asset under the ground. If I see somebody else who can take that risk for me and move it to cash. So I can do a prepayment whereby I tell somebody, can you buy this oil I'm going to produce in the next whatever years from me today? Can you give me the money? So if you find a person who can buy it, then you take the money today. You see, your asset, your cash is your money. It's actually, in terms of valuation, that money is more valuable than the asset under the ground, because the asset under the ground has the performance risk. The risk of getting it out is high. In our case, you have the climate issues. You don't know whether in 7 years oil will still trade the way it's traded today. You don't know whether at that time, whether you have militants for stopping you from going to take the oil. You don't know what the price will be, because the price continues to fluctuate. So today it may be $80, tomorrow it can be $20. So that same asset becomes something else. But if you convert it at the peak of what you think is the historical peak of the price, of the price of the commodity, you can hold it as cash. And you can decide what you do with the cash. It's up to you now. Mm-hmm. You can decide that I invest it in the US Treasury bills. You can decide, well, there are infrastructure that will help transform my economy. I haven't done them. I will use it to do them. There are so many things you want to do, you may want to do with the money. So the debate is not whether you should actually pledge. The debate is what you do with your asset, right. Not whether that you're mortgaging your future by taking the asset under your ground is meaningless to you. Okay. And I also ask you, those who want to should go and research how China became the biggest beneficiary of globalization. Why is it that when globalization started, that most of the investments that came from the US and Europe went to China rather than to Africa? Because China used its assets exactly to pledge to the Japanese, who helped them to build their infrastructure. And then they built their infrastructure, they were ready to take those investments. We didn't build ours.
So just for transparency, there's so many questions that are being asked, and I'll ask some of them. You can just, answer some. But one of it is, what is the interest rate for the loan? Also about the conditions of the loan, including tenure, as well as the SPV, which they say that was in Bahamas, knowing that the recent scandal of this, country's notoriety in, warehousing on clean loans. These are some of the allegations. But if you can just clear up in terms of, the interest on the loan, as well as a repayment plan as well on that loan.
Well, the interest rate on the loan is SOFR, that is the base rate, which is the cost of funds, so to say. And so if a present bank wants to lend money, any other person wants to lend somebody dollars, you start from there as the base. Then you add your margin. And the margin we have, I think, is 6%.
6%.
That is what the margin is.
Okay.
Actually, it is one of the best priced loans in the market today. We are not talking about 3 years ago, 4 years ago. We're talking of today where interest rates have gone up. And we're just hoping that inflation will go down globally so that rates can start going down. And in fact, if those rates start going down, the interest rate on this loan will start also going down. That's what I thought about the pricing of the loan. And it's transparent. There's nothing to hide about it. And anybody who wants to compare it can compare it at the yield, compare it against the yield on the bonds trading today, Nigerian bonds trading today. What are the yields? For a 7-year Nigerian bond, most likely it will be about 15%, if not more. That is where the interest rates are.
Right.
So, the pricing, anybody asking sometimes they ask mischievous questions.
Okay.
Because that's why sometimes people don't respond to those
Right.
things. And there are things people do not, maybe government will not be saying it, but about liberty, because
Yes.
we have a justification for doing what we did. It actually helps to stabilize the financial system. There are banks, many of the Nigerian banks, whose exposure to the CBN have issues because of the forwards that are not, that they will need to get reimbursed. Otherwise, they have also obligations to other people outside the country, those other banks, to meet those obligations. Can you imagine if you start having all the defaults and all that upon it? What we have today will be a child's play.
Okay.
So, it's the job of the government to do what they know is right, actually. Of course, it's good for the people to criticize, ask questions and all that. And government explain as much as they can.
Yes.
But I just think that sometimes people who are criticizing also have to be reasonable.
Yes.
You don't have to go to the newspaper and start telling stories, because if you genuinely want an explanation and you ask, for example, for us at our president, we never got anybody write to us, say, explain this to us.
Okay.
Explain this to us. We are not here, so we're not hiding anything. If anybody came and we felt we should, if it's not a confidential matter, because everything we do is confidential. And by the way, we're not the only lender.
Right.
The other lenders we put together. So if it's something that we believe we should explain, we explain it.
Okay, you've talked about reducing high inflation right now. Hopefully this loan will help with that as well. But Nigerians, their wits end at this point. The economy has gone down with high inflation, and also the devaluation of the naira at this point. I'd like your thoughts on that, and whether or not Nigeria should go back to pegging the naira. I believe there are about 36 countries that are pegging their currency to the dollar at this point. Should Nigeria continue to float the naira?
What I was taught in school was that controls work best when they are not needed. You can if you have excess foreign currency and you fix your foreign currency, it will work perfectly. But you don't need to fix the foreign currency at that time because you have excess foreign currency. So controls work best when they are not needed. But if you don't have it, the best way to ration access to it is through the markets. Otherwise, you immediately put control. When you put control, immediately you have queues. When you have queues, you have to find a way to allocate that scarce commodity. When you now start doing that, people start saying you favored A, you favored B, you didn't give C, and so on and so forth. So freeing the market is the right thing to do. And the reason we're where we are is that something that I thought we had done before, we already freed it, it was reintroduced. The control was reintroduced, and that is what we now have to find our way out of. We are doing it at a time when other things are difficult. And that's why perhaps the impact has been more severe. And two things are happening at the same time, and all reinforce the other. Also removed the subsidy on petroleum products. And because we are importing petroleum products, now if the currency devalues, it immediately impacts the price of petroleum products, which either is borne by the person on the street or by the government that tries to subsidize it in a different way. So that is why it looks like things are really bad. And they are really bad. I'm not saying they're not bad. Inflation is high and all that. But my advice is to stay the course. Because when the economy is in the situation we have today, there are two things you do: stabilization policies and growth policies. So the first thing is to stabilize the economy. And when you're stabilizing the economy, you don't pursue growth. Because if you start pursuing growth policies at that time, you add fuel to destabilization. So we are at the point of stabilizing the economy because they've taken what I think is the right decision of freeing the markets in both with regard to petroleum products, because in fact, there was a time, I believe, that Nigeria had no choice. In fact, that petroleum products people may not know. I don't think Nigeria had a choice. It had to happen. Before that was done, our President Bank was financing above more than 80% of the imports of petroleum in this country. Because of the difficulties we have all over the world about financing petroleum and oil and gas, we were financing more than 80%. And there's a limit to which we could go at the point. And why do I say there's a limit? Because when we were financing this 80%, the price of crude was somewhere around $50, $60. When it went to $80, $80, it doubled. So it will mean, and it actually did mean, that we also doubled the limit for LPs to do this. But we do not have a limitless limit for Nigeria. Okay. So we would not have been able to then meet those requirements. You would then have long queues here. So I think the decision averted this kind of thing. But because it was happening at a time when they had also to deal with the exchange rate, the impact was distinct. But
could it have been done differently, though? Because as experts have said, that they could have done one after another, remove petrol subsidy and then, float the currency. Could it have been done differently? And do you see a time where Nigeria's currency will be exchanging at 3,000 or 4,000 naira to the dollar?
For me, exchange rate is, let me use the word, doesn't mean anything. What matters to the markets is stability. Yes. You may see before the lira, euro replaced the lira. You know where the lira was and all that. They didn't get there overnight. Even Japanese yen, what it was, it didn't get there overnight. It was just, or the South Korean won. As the economies were adjusting to things, the exchange rates moved. The important thing, and studies have shown, is stability. is a volatility the markets don't like. Because once you're able to stabilize the exchange at a point, prices will adjust, markets will adjust, things will return to normal. So I believe the government, they have the capable people, they have in finance, they have in central bank, who will be able to stabilize this economy. Right now it's difficult, obviously very difficult, because people are suffering, prices are rising, but they will come to grips with it. It's not by doing, in fact, if you do and pull back, you postpone the evil day.
Right.
Because even now, do you have all the resources to pull back? So the work that has to be done now is to find a program of action to minimize the social cost of adjustment.
Absolutely. We will postpone the evil day if we had to. So basically, it's stability that we need. And you mentioned earlier that you have financed some petroleum companies as well. And I know that Afrexim Bank is the biggest financier of the Dangote refinery. I'd like to know how that refinery will impact the Nigerian economy.
No, all along our intervention in the Nigerian petroleum, in fact, Africa, we don't do it as on a knee-jerk basis. It's a holistic, strategic approach that we are following. So, yes, we're the biggest financiers to Dangote refinery, direct and indirect financing, $2.5 billion. And we are really proud to be doing that, because Dangote is somebody that will believe the continent must look up to, somebody who has that courage to do this. All the kind of things we always say, oh, they've done it there, they've done it there. He has shown that it's possible to do big things and actually do them successfully. So if he led the way, the responsibility was ours to support as much as we could, and every other person. And we are happy that it is done. And for us, we are doing this because with what we've done, we expect in the next 2 years or 3 years that we will be able to refine at the peak production of crude in Nigeria of 2 million barrels per day. We're able to do a minimum of 50% of it. We need to do more because by allowing ourselves to be in a situation where we export crude and import refined products, that is why we are in this economic difficulty, because you're always living on borrowed time. Your account will never balance, if I want to bring it down. Because you sell something cheap, somebody goes and cooks the food for you and sells it to you at multiple the price you sold. You do not know what is going on because of the dynamic nature of the receipts. When you export, you get the money today. So the time you will pay is a different time. So you think you think you are rich, but you are not. So it is by creating these capacities that will begin to change things and stabilize our economy. And that is why we are really proud. And we are not only doing that in Nigeria, we are also in Angola and so on. Because we want the Gulf of Guinea to be a refining hub. And when the Gulf of Guinea becomes a refining hub, when we are able to refine 50% of the about 5 million barrels we produce along the Gulf of Guinea, 5 million barrels per day, what do you think will happen? We will have the logistics the work move into the Gulf of Guinea. Shipping will move into the Gulf of Guinea. The insurance will move there. The banking will move there. So we will begin to get the full value for what God has given us. For many years, we've squandered them, to say it in the most basic form. But right now, thanks to entrepreneurs like Aliko Dangote, thanks to the work I think NNPC is doing to try to put back some of the refineries and others, and even in other countries, I mentioned Angola, we have projects coming up also in Senegal and other places. We will begin to see, hopefully, a different region, especially with oil and gas.
Absolutely. Now, as someone who has been deeply involved in African banking, where do you see the biggest challenge and, of course, the biggest opportunities for economic growth and development in Africa?
Well, okay, I would rather go the biggest opportunity. The biggest opportunity to support the African Continental Free Trade Agreement implementation, intra-African trade and investments. The biggest opportunity is to create regional value chains, because that is where we would be able then to build a manufacturing base. Today, across the continent, we import about $40–50 billion of light manufacturers from China, increasing also from Vietnam and other places. And this is because we've not been able to build the manufacturing capacity to replace what China would delocalize. And if we're not able to build it, another country will begin to supply us what China supplies us today. But the AfCFTA provides that unique opportunity for us to be able to replace those imports we get from China. And that is where the opportunity lies, because with globalization now disappearing, deglobalization disappearing, it was globalization that made China what it was. It was globalization that made Asia what they were. But if we look up to globalization today, we will be looking up for a long time, because the world is now fractured. That's why we have to look inwards and take advantage of what the African Continental Free Trade Agreement offers us. And it offers us so many things. And that is why Afreximbank is doing so much to make sure that it's successful. That's why we have to integrate the payment systems. Yes. We have to make sure that transit issues are resolved. We have to make sure that we use digital technology to vault the 110 borders we have that divide us.
It's amazing the work that Afreximbank has been doing so far. I mean, just last year in November, we're in Cairo, Egypt for the Intra-Africa Trade Fair. And your bank announced a lot of initiatives, including that $1 billion film fund. You know, this is dear to my heart because, you know, as a filmmaker and someone who loves the arts, I understand that that $1 billion will go a long way in facilitating the creative industry. And I know that Afreximbank has, you know, sponsored some film projects, including some that has gone to, you know, the Toronto Film Festival. What is in it for Nigeria?
Well, the Film Fund is actually for global Africa.
Yeah.
It's a project we are working on with Magic Johnson, Boris Kojo, and many others, right, both in the diaspora and Africa. And what we want is to use the Film Fund to make sure that the Africa brand of filmmaking becomes recognized and attracts the value it should attract. And Nigeria, through the hard work of our youth, has made itself the leader in filmmaking within the geographic Africa, in Nollywood.
Yes.
And we see it in the films we are financing. At least I think we have either just finance on the pipeline, but almost $170 million, most of them from Nigeria and some from South Africa and so on. But Nigeria historically has built its film industry, sometimes with little support from the government. But the youth have done it. And because they have done it, they have achieved recognition. It has achieved recognition. Now, with this film fund, we expect, with the work we're doing with so many of the big stars, including Idris Elba and so on, that Nigerian filmmakers, Nigerian actors and actresses are going to become big beneficiaries of the fund. And we also expect that this fund will be much bigger than the $1 billion we've initially fixed it for. Yes. We believe that given the kind of people that are backing it, given the kind of projects that we're looking to put onto it, that the big studios, in the global studios, would want to be part of it.
Amazing.
And that is why we look forward to having this up and running, and also look forward to seeing the impact it will make, not only in Nigeria, but other parts of Africa.
As we begin to wrap up, I'd like to go a little bit lighter. I'd like for you to share with us your journey from being the assistant manager of Nexim Bank to becoming the president of Afrexim Bank.
Okay, I was born in River State, Ahoda, and I'm from Nokwa in Anambra State, Nigeria. Of course, school was from there, Anambra State, and then my university years were here in the western part of Nigeria, Ibadan and Ife. Ended up at Nexim, you're right, as assistant manager, but somehow, as I went through postgraduate school, I had huge interest in working at Nexim Bank. I was passionate about the job. So luck of maybe things unfolded, the African Export-Import Bank was created. And as member of the team at Afrexim Bank, so that Nexim Bank, when the work was being done, we provided input as Nigeria considered membership of the bank.
Yeah, but as a young man,
Yeah.
what motivated you to pursue a career in economics?
Well, actually, I studied agricultural economics. When I was just about completing my secondary school education, just before we started applying to go into universities, somehow it was a fad. I had somebody whose brother was in agri-economics in UNN, and so much talk about agricultural economics. There were two things I wanted to do at that time.
Yes.
Petroleum economics, agri-economics. So somehow I ended up applying to study agri-economics.
Right.
So it wasn't as if just as I told you about my passion for Exim banking.
Yes.
So it wasn't as if I started off saying I wanted to be an economist. If anything, I wanted to be a geologist.
Okay.
I actually wanted to be a geologist.
Well.
But maybe just towards my final year in secondary school, this part of agri-economics became an issue, and they were talking about development issues. I started getting interested. And that's how I ended up studying agricultural economics. And of course, when I came into the university to study it, I knew this was what I wanted to do all through. After my prelim in UI,
Yeah.
one of our professors there asked me, would I move to pharmacy? Because at the time, a pharmacy department was just being created in UI. They used to have a pharmacology department. But I came and talked to my eldest brother here in Lagos. I remember what he told me. He just told me, I don't know whether that will be inspirational to those who are studying.
Yes, tell our viewers.
No.
What did he say?
Well, he told me if I wanted to be in the lab and others were making decisions, I should go and change.
Right.
But if I want to be the decision maker, I should go and continue what I was doing.
Absolutely. And now you are a decision maker. The president of Afrexim Bank. Now, looking back at your career so far, what are you most proud of?
Well, I would say that I participated in creating what has become and will become, even in future, a most consequential continental institution in Africa. An institution that puts Africa first, that understands and recognizes that its role is to be at the center of the fight for economic independence. not an institution that is just there to make profit, but an institution that is an agent of change. I'll be very pleased that I played my own role. I took my own risks, and I also provided leadership. I hope that when I leave and others follow, that this institution will be what I think is already becoming. That financial institution that becomes the seed that will create the capital that will make the difference for Africa, because we are poor today in the world because we have not solved the capital problem.
As we wrap up, Nigeria lost two of its brightest patriots, Dr. Herbert Wigu, the group CEO of Access Bank, and Abimbola Ogunbanjo, the chairman of the NGX Group. I know that you had a personal relationship with Dr. Herbert Wigu. I'd like for you to share with us your last moments with him and what you would like the world to know about him.
Herbert and I go back almost 30 years as young bankers, and the chemistry clicked from day one. He had the same kind of vision I had. He believed in the kind of things I believed. He knew the power of capital in changing the lives of the people. And we became friends. Not only just friends, but also colleagues, although we worked in different institutions. We collaborated quite a lot. Worked together to bring change. Herbert was a visionary. Herbert has courage. He has passion for country, passion for Africa. In the past few years, he had actually built a partnership with us that was becoming something that was going to bring a different perspective to the way institutions like ours work with commercial banks. We've worked with him to support the expansion to other parts of the continent of Africa. And we were doing this because we trusted in Herbert. We trusted in the vision because we shared the same vision. So we knew that by supporting him and the Access Bank Group to expand, that we're creating the network that is needed to help us drive the economic transformation of the continent through empowering our people by providing the capital that they need. We've also moved on. They joined us to the Caribbean, and we were working together to also create a bank in Caribbean, with our fund becoming also a co-investor there. Working together to create institutions that support transactions for SMEs. So Herbert, with his partner Ike, have been extremely fantastic. It was tragic, but I always say it's not how long, but how well. Herbert lived a short and eventful life. He changed the course of history, I can tell you that. Not only for his institution, but also for Africa, because somebody like that dying and the whole continent feeling is a very, very, very strong pain, even at the highest levels. That tells you the contribution that person has made and what is the value of life. If we live for 1,000 years and we pass away and nobody knows or nobody cares, if we live for a very short life and we pass away and everybody bows their head to say a great person just left us. Also with Herbert, were his wife and his son, and another very good friend of ours, Bimbo. Great people. Tragic loss. The last encounter I had with him, in fact, I had several encounters with him the week before this happened, because I was supposed to meet him on the 13th in London. There was a reason he contacted me on the 2nd before I traveled. Then on the day this happened, he called me and spoke to my colleague who was in the plane with me to check and to inform me that he was going to Las Vegas, only for me to hear the next day that he met this unfortunate, and God knows best.
Absolutely. I'm sorry, deeply, deeply sorry for your loss. Like they say, to live in the hearts of those you love is not to die. May his soul rest in peace, as
Amen.
well as Abimbola Ogunbanjo. Professor Benedict Oramah, it's been an absolute pleasure speaking with you today. Thank you very much for joining.
Thank you very much, Oji. That's been an interesting interview.